June 3, 1953. The contract was simple, 1 page, handwritten, witnessed by 3 people. It said this: Bumpy Johnson and Carmine Battaglia each provide 1 fighter. Winner takes control of the numbers racket on Pleasant Avenue. Loser pulls out completely. No lawyers, no appeals. 1 fight decides everything. Both men signed it. Both men shook hands. Both men thought they understood the rules. But 60 minutes before the opening bell, when Bumpy Johnson pulled his original fighter and substituted someone else, when Carmine Battaglia screamed that this was cheating, Bumpy smiled and said 5 words that made the Italian mobster realize he'd been outsmarted from the very beginning. The contract says my fighter. That's exactly who I'm giving you. It started 3 months earlier, March 1953. Carmine the Bull Battaglia was a captain in the Genovese family, 48 years old, built like a truck, reputation for settling disputes with his fists before his brain. He'd been trying to expand into Harlem for 2 years, specifically targeting Pleasant Avenue, the border territory where Italian East Harlem met Black Harlem. The numbers racket there was worth $500,000 a year, small compared to the rest of Harlem, but valuable, and Carmine wanted it. He'd tried the usual approaches, sent soldiers to intimidate runners, offered protection money to policy banks, attempted to bribe local cops. Nothing worked. Because Bumpy Johnson had Pleasant Avenue locked down tighter than Fort Knox, every runner was loyal, every policy bank was protected, every cop on that street was already on Bumpy's payroll. Carmine couldn't break in. So he decided to try something different, a wager, 1 fight, winner takes all. March 17th, Carmine sent word through Meyer Lansky. He wants to meet, settle the Pleasant Avenue situation once and for all. Bumpy was in his office when Junie Bird delivered the message. What's he proposing? A boxing match, his fighter against yours. Winner takes the territory. Bumpy leaned back in his chair, lit a cigar. That's actually interesting. You thinking about it? I'm thinking Carmine's not smart enough to come up with this himself. Someone advised him. Probably someone who knows I won't start a war over Pleasant Avenue. It's not worth the bloodshed. Exactly, Junie said. So they're offering you a way out that looks honorable, a sporting contest. If you lose, you can walk away without losing face. And if I win, Bumpy said slowly, I keep what's already mine and Carmine looks like a fool. He smiled. Tell Lansky I'll meet. The meeting happened on March 24th at Gallagher's Steakhouse in Midtown, neutral territory. Carmine Battaglia arrived with 2 bodyguards. Bumpy came alone. They sat in a back booth, ordered steaks they wouldn't eat, and got down to business. Here's my proposal, Carmine said, not wasting time. We each put up a fighter. Professional bout, 10 rounds, winner takes Pleasant Avenue. Clean, simple, no bloodshed. Bumpy cut into his steak. And if I say no, then we keep doing what we're doing. My people keep pushing, your people keep pushing back. Eventually someone dies. Eventually cops get involved. Eventually, we both lose money. He paused. Or we settle this like men, in the ring. Bumpy was quiet for a moment. What weight class? Welterweight, 147 pounds. And we use a legitimate referee? Absolutely. New York State Athletic Commission official. Everything by the book. Bumpy nodded slowly. I'll need to see the contract in writing. Of course. My lawyer will draft it. We sign it in front of witnesses. Binding agreement. One more thing, Bumpy said. When's the fight? June 3rd, St. Nicholas Arena. Bumpy smiled. That gives me 10 weeks to find a fighter. That gives us both 10 weeks. May the best man win. Over the next 2 months, Carmine Battaglia prepared his champion. His name was Tony the Hammer Morelli. 26 years old, professional record of 18-3, known for devastating body shots that broke ribs and crushed spirits. Morelli had fought his way up from the streets of Brooklyn, turning neighborhood brawls into a legitimate boxing career. He was fast, brutal, and hungry. Carmine had been grooming him for years, waiting for the right moment to use him. This was it. Bumpy, meanwhile, appeared to be doing the same thing. He selected a fighter named James Quick Hands Wilson, 24 years old, record of 14-2, a Harlem kid who'd learned to box at the local gym on 135th Street. Wilson was technical, defensive, smart in the ring. Not a knockout artist, but a tactician who could go 10 rounds and win on points. Everyone in Harlem knew Wilson. He trained publicly at Gleason's gym, sparred with other local fighters, did road work through Central Park every morning at 6 a.m. He was Bumpy's fighter, no question. May 15th, both camps met to sign the official contract. A lawyer drafted it on behalf of both parties. 1 page, simple language. The terms were clear. Bumpy Johnson provides 1 fighter. Carmine Battaglia provides 1 fighter. Winner of the bout takes control of Pleasant Avenue numbers operation. Loser withdraws all claims to the territory. Binding agreement, no appeals. Both men signed. 3 witnesses, including Meyer Lansky, signed below. The contract was sealed. What nobody noticed, what Carmine's lawyer didn't catch, what even Meyer Lansky didn't think about, was the exact wording. The contract didn't say James Quick Hands Wilson. It said Bumpy Johnson provides 1 fighter. Any fighter. As long as Bumpy provided him, the contract was valid. June 3rd arrived. St. Nicholas Arena was packed. 2,000 people, half of them Italian, betting on Tony Morelli, half of them black, betting on James Wilson. The atmosphere was electric. This wasn't just a boxing match. It was a territorial war settled in the ring. Pride, money, control. Everything was on the line. At 7 p.m., the undercard fights finished. The ring was cleared. The main event was scheduled for 8 p.m. Carmine Battaglia sat ringside with his crew. Bumpy Johnson sat across from him with Junie Bird and Illinois Gordon. Tony Morelli was in the locker room, warming up, wrapping his hands, ready to fight, and James Quick Hands Wilson was absent. At 7:45 p.m., 15 minutes before the scheduled start, Bumpy stood up and walked to the ring announcer. He whispered something in the man's ear. The announcer's eyes went wide. He looked at Bumpy, then at Carmine, then back at Bumpy. "You're serious?" "Absolutely." The announcer picked up the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have an announcement. There's been a change to tonight's main event. James Wilson will not be fighting. Instead, representing Bumpy Johnson, we have a substitute fighter, Raymond Robinson." The crowd went silent, then erupted, confusion, shouting, people looking at each other trying to understand what just happened. Carmine Battaglia jumped to his feet, face red with rage. He stormed over to Bumpy. "What the hell is this? A substitution. My fighter couldn't make it, so I'm providing a different one. That's not what we agreed to. You can't change fighters an hour before the match." Bumpy pulled the contract from his jacket pocket, unfolded it calmly. "Show me where it says I can't." Carmine grabbed the paper, scanned it frantically. His lawyer leaned in, reading over his shoulder. "The contract says you provide James Wilson." "No, it doesn't. Read it again." The lawyer read it slowly. "Bumpy Johnson provides 1 fighter." He looked up. "It doesn't specify a name." "Exactly," Bumpy said. "It says I provide a fighter. I'm providing Raymond Robinson. Unless the contract specifically prohibits substitutions, which it doesn't, I'm within my rights." Carmine was shaking with anger. "This is a setup. You never intended to use Wilson." Bumpy smiled. "I prepared Wilson for 2 months, trained him publicly, made sure everyone knew he was my fighter, but the contract didn't require me to use him. It only required me to provide someone, and I am. Who the hell is Raymond Robinson? You'll see in about 10 minutes, unless you want to forfeit." "Forfeit?" Carmine spat. "My guy will destroy whoever you bring. Then we have no problem." Bumpy turned and walked back to his seat. At 8:02 p.m., Raymond Robinson entered the arena. He was 5 feet 11 inches, 147 pounds, built like a panther. His robe said Robinson on the back. When he climbed into the ring and removed the robe, the Italian section of the crowd started whispering. Some of them recognized him, most didn't. But the black section of the crowd, they knew. They knew exactly who he was, and they went absolutely wild. Raymond Robinson wasn't just a random substitute. He was the younger brother of Sugar Ray Robinson, the greatest pound-for-pound fighter in the world. Ray himself couldn't fight. He was in a different weight class, under contract for championship bouts. But his little brother Raymond? Raymond was a professional boxer with a record of 22-1, fast as lightning, powerful as a locomotive, and trained by the same people who'd trained Sugar Ray. Carmine Battaglia finally understood. He'd been conned. Bumpy had never planned to use James Wilson. Wilson was a decoy, a public fighter everyone could see and scout and prepare for. Meanwhile, Bumpy had secretly contracted Raymond Robinson, kept him out of the public eye, and waited until the last possible moment to reveal him. The contract allowed it. The terms permitted it. It was legal, brilliant, and completely devastating. The referee called both fighters to the center of the ring, explained the rules. Morelli looked confident. Robinson looked calm. The bell rang, and what happened over the next 8 minutes was a masterclass in boxing. Robinson was faster than Morelli had ever seen, jabs that appeared from nowhere, combinations that blurred together, footwork that made Morelli swing at air. By the end of round 2, Morelli's face was swelling. By round 4, he was bleeding from a cut above his eye. By round 6, he could barely see. The referee stopped it in round 7. Technical knockout. Raymond Robinson, winner by TKO. The crowd exploded, the black section celebrating, the Italian section in shocked silence, and Carmine Battaglia sitting ringside, watching his fighter get helped out of the ring, realizing he'd just lost Pleasant Avenue because he'd been too stupid to read a contract carefully. Bumpy walked over to Carmine's section, sat down next to him. Carmine wouldn't look at him. "You cheated," the Italian muttered. "I played by the rules you agreed to." "That's not cheating. That's strategy." "You said my fighter." "The contract says my fighter. Raymond Robinson is my fighter. I paid him. I contracted him. I provided him. Everything was legal." Carmine finally looked at him. His eyes were furious, but also defeated. "You planned this from the beginning, the moment you agreed to the match," Bumpy said quietly. "I knew you'd scout whoever I showed publicly, so I gave you someone to prepare for. Meanwhile, I secured someone you didn't know about." He paused. "The contract allowed substitutions because it never prohibited them. That's your lawyer's fault, not mine." Carmine was silent for a long time. Then he shook his head. "I underestimated you. Most people do." Bumpy stood up. "Pleasant Avenue stays with Harlem. The contract is honored. And Carmine?" "Yes? Next time you want to make a bet, read the fine print." The story of the boxing match became legend in New York's underworld. Not because of the fight itself, but because of the setup. Bumpy had played Carmine Battaglia like a chess master 3 moves ahead. He'd used the contract's vagueness to his advantage. He'd created a decoy fighter to distract attention. He'd secured a champion in secret. And he'd done it all legally, within the exact terms both men had agreed to. Meyer Lansky, who'd witnessed the contract signing, later told associates, "I watched Bumpy sign that paper and I didn't see it coming. The contract said his fighter. I assumed that meant Wilson." But Bumpy knew the difference between specific and general language. He knew that his fighter could be anyone he chose. That's the kind of intelligence that makes someone dangerous. Raymond Robinson fought professionally for 3 more years before retiring. He never became as famous as his brother Sugar Ray, but he's remembered in boxing history as the man who won Bumpy Johnson a territory war in 7 rounds. And James Quick Hands Wilson, he kept training, kept fighting local matches, never knowing he'd been a pawn in a much larger game. Bumpy paid him well for 2 months of public training. Wilson thought he'd lost the opportunity of a lifetime when he was pulled from the fight. He never knew the opportunity had never been his to begin with. Carmine the Bull Battaglia never tried to take Harlem territory again. The boxing match humiliation was enough. His reputation took a hit. People whispered that he'd been outsmarted by a street hustler, that he'd signed a contract without reading it properly, that he'd walked into a trap with his eyes open. Within a year, he'd been demoted in the Genovese family. Within 3 years, he'd retired to Florida. The boxing match had ended more than just a territorial dispute. It had ended his career. Bumpy kept the contract framed in his office for the rest of his life. 1 page, simple language, and a loophole big enough to drive a championship fighter through. Visitors would ask about it. Bumpy would tell the story. And every time he got to the part where Carmine demanded to know who Raymond Robinson was, Bumpy would smile and say, "My fighter." Just like the contract promised, if this story taught you that the smartest victories come from reading what's not written, hit subscribe. Drop a like if you understand that legal language is a weapon for those who know how to use it. And comment below, would you have caught Bumpy's loophole or walked into the same trap? More legendary stories coming next. Don't miss them.